Kirwan's Game Store, the best place in gaming.
Gain new life.
Exactly. Absolutely. And what do we have in the board for Paul?
For Paul, we have Eidolon of the Great Rebels, Searing Bloods, Roast, Arc Lightning, and Magmatic Chasm.
You guys, I wish you could see this because this is the most typical mono red sideboard in the sense that it's 4-4-4-1-2. Like, there's no one of in here. He's got that nice full sideboard package.
So for me, the Searing Bloods seem pretty good. I can't say exactly how good, but it's going to turn off some of the early creatures that Max can block with.
Yeah.
You know, bringing in the Arishan Cleric that Paul doesn't know about, that's going to be a problematic card, and it's not going to be able to be killed by the Searing Blood. But the Roasts are going to be very, very good
Yes.
against Max. It's going to be a 2-mana play that's going to take out
It's going to
everything.
be a barbecue up in here.
The Arc Lightnings are pretty solid. It can go to the face too. So if you board it in and you can't find a creature to kill it with, it's just a 3-mana, 3-damage spell. Magmatic Chasm is probably going to be the blowout spell that Paul really needs to win game 2.
A lot of the strength in mono red right now, I feel, in the standard format is that there's so many good red spells that you can never 100% know what's coming out of your opponent either. They have a lot of choices, and there's a lot of differences between decks. There's no like one correct way to build mono red. So I think that's really good. You can go wide.
I definitely agree. There's so many available 1-drops. Like Lightning Berserker's really good, Zergo Bellstriker's really good, Swift Spear, Foundry Shoot Denizen, and even Fire Drinker Satyr that nobody's playing anymore.
Absolutely, which it's insane to think that Fire Drinker Satyr is in the format mono red is a deck and it's not seeing play, but that's just kind of like the level that you're looking at when you're comparing all of these red cards.
Another thing that I find really interesting is Eidolon the Great Rebel is one of the best red cards printed recently. You see it in Modern, you see it in Legacy. The card's amazing, but it doesn't port very well to Standard. And we've seen this before with, say, Deathrite Shamans and other cards that are absolutely amazing in Eternal formats, but very lackluster in Standard.
Yeah, I don't know. It's got to have a home somewhere in Standard. I can't imagine a card that powerful can't. He does have the 4 Eidolons in his board, so.
This is very interesting. Max was on the play, and you can see that the mono red player has 2 lands on the floor. So I'm thinking Max missed a land drop, and both players kept 7 cards.
Oh.
So that's an Elspeth draw. So it looks like Max boarded in Elspeth as well. I like Elspeth against the red decks. If you can, make early trades and then land in Elspeth, it's one of the cards that can really definitely make the game heavy in your favor.
You also have to keep in mind, like, Max is playing a lot of mana dorks. He's not, like, necessarily a full control deck, so he's going to hopefully get his idea is to get to that Elspeth even sooner, which is very good. However, you cannot play an Elspeth with 1 forest. And at this point, it almost doesn't matter what Paul is playing as long as he's deploying any type of threat whatsoever.
So, Hall of Triumph on red, which is really interesting because there's not a card out of the sideboard. It's a main board single Hall of Triumph. And that, sadly, was the extension of the hand by Max. This is much shorter than we hoped. Finding that second land, I think, would have been a much better day for Max. Playing the Sylvan Carry,
he needed a bunch, but yes, yeah. Oh, that was unfortunate. That was
very
an unfortunate series of events.
And Max has a lot of great sideboard cards, and I want to say there was definitely an Arishan Cleric or something in his hand in that game where it forced him to definitely keep it. Like, you don't want to mulligan too many times on the play.
Absolutely.
And he had the Sylvan Carry in his hand, so if he finds a land, he's fine. You know what I mean? Plays the Carry on 2. And he's able to go to 3 and a 4 when he needs to.
The problem with that is when you're on the play, you really can't keep those hands because you have one chance, like one shot.
Switch to us. That's okay. So it's definitely true, especially when your land's an untapped land already. Like, you're already lowering your percentage of playing other untapped lands, and if you draw a temple, you have to play it tapped. You can't really get it onto the floor turn 2 when you really, really need it. It's definitely disadvantageous, but we've been there before. You know what I mean? We've all had those one-lander.
Really tough decisions.
You know, these are the perfect 6 cards I need to beat this deck. If I just draw 1 land, we're fine.
And we can be sitting here right now and thinking that he kept a one-lander, he draw running lands, and he went insane and won the game. So
I've had those hands myself, playing against Boggles with my tried and trusty Jund. You know, I have Verdant Catacombs, Thoughtseize, Abrupt Decay, Golgari Charm, Maelstrom Pulse, Tarmogoyf, Dark Confidant. On the play against Boggles, Game 3. So, like, this is just 5 amazing cards. Can't ever lose if I draw a land. And I didn't find it. And he had a really good hand against me.
Yeah, definitely. So what we're finding out, what this coverage is teaching you, is that you need to draw your lands. And you cannot play Magic if you don't draw your lands.
This is true. All right, we are going to cut to break time for a minute, see if we can find a second match, or maybe we can track down Dan Ward and get an interview with him to see how good that Black-Red Dragons deck really is.
They're very grindy, so if he can get a fast win, I think that would be the best bet for him.
I agree. He's got main board Wild Slashes. I think those are probably easily some of the weakest cards. You know what I mean? Just playing a Siege Rhino is going to completely negate the Wild Slash. So,
right.
You know what I mean? You don't want to be wasting a card that they can just easily just take back the life on.
Yes, definitely. Oliver Tomashko does run 2 Doomlake Giants in his main board.
So
I saw him in the SCG Open really get a tokens deck with that. So
yeah, I think that's easily going to be the best thing. And again, in Jeremy's sideboard, we have an Elspeth Suns champion, which, you know, in a grindier, longer matchup, that's a card that you probably want. The problem is the Doomlake Giants and Hornet Queen are really going to put the game away against an Elspeth.
Hornet Queen, very, very good Magic card.
So we probably want like Dragon Lord's Disdainful Strokes. I think I like the Outpost Siege to be able to draw extra cards, because with cheap spells like Jeremy has, like he can deploy multiple threats in a turn and really start turning the gas on. And if he finds a Jeskai Ascendancy drawing extra cards per turn, that's really going to turn it on for him. And he might just be able to get him big enough just to kill in one swing, which is going to be pretty good for him.
All right, so it looks like we are getting into game 2. Each player has shuffled and they're drawing their 7, and they're looking at it, deciding if they like it.
Oliver's hand looks pretty good. I see a couple of lands, some Satyr Wayfinders, and a Hornet Queen, I believe, which is very good for him.
Satyr Wayfinder is insane in this deck. It just makes everything go so much more smoothly. And look at
He misses. Last night at FNM, I played so many Wayfinders that missed. I was just so sad about it. I couldn't even believe it.
Hurts. You know, it's more things to look back later. That's just how we'll look at it.
So it looks like Oliver has a Thoughtseize, a Satyr Wayfinder, and a tapped and untapped land, I think, or maybe 2 tapped lands.
All right, so he's gonna get in.
I think going for the second Wayfinder. If you miss on the land, you still have more to play. If you hit on an untapped land, then you might be able to play the Thoughtseize in your hand, which would be really good. But it looks like Jeremy's got set up for a Raise the Alarm on his side. So that's, I think, what I'm expecting currently is end step, Raise the Alarm. But, you know, Oliver's got some 1/1s on the floor that are going to trade with this card.
Exactly.
But
I mean, it's not the worst thing for Jeremy if they do trade with Satyr Wayfinders, mainly because I'm always in absolute fear of Siddiqui, and it's a very easy, Satyr Wayfinder is a very easy card to exploit, so,
yes.
you know, it's always good to at least force him to...
Here it is. Goblin Rattlemaster on turn 3, post Raise the Alarm, so we're coming across for 3 damage if he decides to attack with all of his creatures. Jeremy tracking down his nicest of the Goblin tokens.
Yeah,
Wayfinder's
really
going to trade with that.
I mean,
so
he does have a very nice deck. If you see those nice foil cards.
yeah. Trading with the Goblin token over the Soldier tokens to keep Rabblemaster in check is definitely what we want to be doing over here. Oliver, I think, probably wants to fire off the Thoughtseize this turn, because we don't want, you know, there's Treasure Cruises, Stoke the Flames, Jeskai Ascendancy. Those are cards that are all very hard to deal with, and we need to get them off the floor. Update the life totals very quickly. Oliver goes to 17 from the Windswept Heath. Got 4 lands on the side. This is Siege Rhino territory. He's going to go with Courser.
And there's Siege Rhino on top.
Speak of the devil, he's right there. He still has the 1 black open for the Thoughtseize. And there it is.
Absolutely. And he will lay down his grip. Looks like he does have some Treasure Cruises.
Double Treasure Cruise.
That gold boat is sailing away for him. He's got a Mystic Monastery.
A Shivan Reef and a Disdainful Stroke. So, as much as I want to take the Treasure Cruises right now, you know, redundancy in those cards is really tough. He goes with the Disdainful Stroke.
Yeah, I would leave them mainly because he's definitely going to be able to cast one, since you cannot take them both. And the thing is it's going to take a while for him to probably refuel his graveyard.
Cast the second one.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, the Thoughtseize definitely helps a little bit.
So this is nice. Because of that Courser, he has very profitable blocks here.
Yeah. He's definitely taking a token with him. Jeremy, looks like Jeremy has an Anger of the Gods in his hand. That was probably his draw for turn. Yeah, that is definitely an Anger of the Gods. That's.
I mean, it's good against Hornet Queen.
This is true. It cleans up the Wayfinders so you can't exploit them with Sidisi.
Yep, exactly. There's that.
Ooh, there's a Den Protector in the main board as well.
Yes, there is.
Sylvan Caryatids. Farika, God of Affliction, is main board as well. So if Jeremy saw that game one,
he could definitely have brought in Anger of the Gods for that.
here is the Siege Rhino on turn
That
5
one
with
knew
another
about.
tapped land. Jeremy's going
the
to go down
Den Protector on
to
it.
16. Oliver's going to go to 15 or 18 with the Gain of Life and Courser as well. So these two cards work very, very well together. There's a Den Protector on top. This is,
Yes.
and he's got enough mana to be able to play the Den Protector and unmorph it to be able to get a card out of his graveyard.
Exactly, which is, so the Seder Wayfinder didn't hit too many lands, but that you have a good selection of what you want in that situation.
That's another interesting thing, actually, is not only do we have the whips in these decks to generate value, but the Den Protector can generate graveyard value
Absolutely.
as well.
And it looks like Jeremy is anticipating, which I don't know if you know the flavor text, but it's a beautiful flavor text.
Does it?
It is, you guys in the chat can correct me, but it's something like, I have meditated on my actions and my opponents will have no recourse if I meditate on my actions. So
That's
very nice.
really awesome.
Very blue flavor text.
The picture I really enjoy too, because it's, it's kind of like a Sherlock Holmes-esque feel where he thinks about how his moves are going to go.
Yeah.
And it's a very magical card. Where it's like, how am I going to play my next 3 turns? Okay, I need to be here. Oliver gets to untap. He finds a Whip of Erebos on the top of his library, which is going to be very, very good because you'll be able to play the Den Protector, get a creature, draw a Whip, and then have Whip on the floor with an unmorphed Den Protector.
He absolutely has to be very happy to see that on the top of his deck.
Oliver going to 6 lands, 2 or 3 cards in hand, I believe. It's like, yep, there it is. The face down Den Protector with another Hornet Queen in hand as well, too.
Yes.
So if he finds a land on top under this Whip of Erebos, we got a Hornet Queen on the floor, which is going to spell very,
It's
very
just-
dangerous for Jeremy.
Yes. And this is one of those spots where we all know that Rabble Master by itself can just take over a game, but it's one of those spots where it doesn't look as good as, you write it down on paper to look.
Yep. So he's going to block Rabble Master and the Goblin token. Take 1 from the Soldier token. But I believe that Jeremy's going to do something with this Anger of the Gods in his hand.
I do think so. He is setting it up.
Trying to take the least amount of damage from the red. No, he's still taking 1. There it is. Anger of the Gods. 3 damage to all creatures. If they were to die this turn, exile them instead. Which is really good against the whip decks. I think it's underwhelming how much damage the card does, though. Because it doesn't kill a lot of the really, really important permanents.
You
when
can
need
see
them
he
to.
casts Anger of the Gods. He gets to flip up the Den Protector, get a card that he wants back. It doesn't kill the Siege Rhino. Yes, it killed Courser and it forced him to flip the Den Protector up, which he was probably going to do end of turn anyways. So wasn't that exciting. I mean, he's in a better position, but he's still in a losing one.
This is true. And Oliver picked up a Thoughtseize, and you see 3 Treasure Cruises and a Disdainful Stroke. It's going to clear the way for the Whip of Erebos that's going to land through the counter spell.
And I think this is definitely, this just goes to show that Oliver made the correct choice with his first Thoughtseize. He has 3 Treasure Cruises. He's far from casting all 3 of them.
He's probably going to try to get 1 off because, I can see 3 Treasure Cruises and a white card in his hand right now.
Right.
And that white card, I think, is to secure the wastes, but it's not helping him right now.
And he decided that there was nothing to see.
That's going to be the game. 3 cards will not do it for Jeremy in this point. Oliver having a trampling 4/5 life-linking Siege Rhino
and a
is
whip.
going to propel him past.
Yeah.
So they are tied at 1-1 now. They're going to go back to the sideboard and see if they can make some changes to win another game.
Absolutely. So it looks like we're lucky. We're going to get the full 3 games. And kind of what I thought, the deck, it definitely played out like I thought the matchup would play. Once the game has gone past the first few turns, and assuming there's nothing wrong on Oliver's side in terms of like he's hitting all of his land drops, he has like those things, it's really impossible I don't want to say impossible, but it's very unlikely for Jeremy to win past that point if he hasn't already applied a ton of damage.
I think a weird part on Jeremy's side is a lot of people like boarding Rabble Masters out when they're on the draw, especially against the deck that plays Courser of Krufix and like Sylvan Caryatids, where they're just not as effective.
Yeah.
Jeremy decided to leave his in, but I think when facing down Siege Rhinos and Courser of Krufixes, I just don't think your Rabble Masters are that good.
I can't imagine that they are. Maybe he took out some and left some in.
Possibly. They do generate tokens, which, it's what the deck really wants to do.
Right.
But I really think there's better things for him to do, especially on the draw.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But it seems like they're pretty much ready to go. They're going to shuffle a little bit more.
Yeah, and Jeremy's going to be on the play, so I like the Rabble Masters a lot better on the play.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to run right into a Courser of Krufix or a Siege Rhino. You're going to be able to get some value out of it before that.
And as far as the questions, you guys, we love you being very active in chat. We're not 100% down here in our little booth how many people are total or how many are fired, but we will get that information to you between the next rounds, and we will have that for you. So you will 100% know how many rounds. One thing I am for sure of is this is an elimination round for them. Whoever loses this will not be in top 8 contention. So they're really fighting for their lives. They are 2-1 currently. So it looks like they are drawing up their 7, taking a look, seeing how they like it, and they very quickly decided to keep both of them. So.
Ooh. Oliver's going to come out.
It's a painful start, but it's pretty good.
It is not modern, however, luckily. The Fetch Shock Thoughtseize, as amazing as that is not quite as bad. I've had many starts on a Fetch Shock Thoughtseize.
Crack bets, take 2.
This is a pretty. I think I like Jeremy's keep here. There's probably a couple too many treasure cruises for my opinion.
Right.
And he kept the Anger of the Gods, which I think is kind of like anti his plan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You want to try to be on the play, and you want to try to go faster than your opponent. So you don't want to, let them get ahead of you, and you don't want to have to Anger the Gods.
I just don't think it's a winning proposition to try to outgrind any type of deck that has whips.
Yeah.
They'll get you in the end. It is a relatively slow hand for him as well. He took the Anticipate, which I 100% Oliver, I believe that was right on Oliver's part, because that's really what's going to put his hand together. He has 2 tap lands. He doesn't have really much else going on for him. He has treasure cruises that are very far away from being cast.
And the Anticipate's definitely going to be the card that's going to help him flow
Exactly.
into the treasure cruises.
Exactly.
Now,
Yes.
you know what I mean? You 100% put him on a main phase Dragon Fodder on turn 3, which I think is fine for Oliver because, it's not turn 2, it's not an instant speed, raise the alarm. You know what I mean? You don't care as much about the 2/1/1s out of the Dragon Fodder,
No.
especially with a turn 2, Satyr Wayfinder.
Not these, the other.
We haven't seen Jeremy have a chance to deploy his Jeskai Ascendancies, which does take this deck like above.
Yes, that's the card that makes this deck really truly viable. Because without it, you're just playing with a bunch of 1/1s. Oliver's hand actually looks really tough. It really looks like Oliver only has lands in his hand.
That is what it appears to be.
I see one Satyr Wayfinder and a
He does
whip.
have a whip, so that's good.
Yeah, he can start generating value out of the Satyr Wayfinders when he starts deploying them.
Now looks like he's just gonna start with the whip.
I think the whip's a pretty good plan here.
Yes.
You can whip back a Courser of Krufix, gain 2 life on the attack, and then play a land and gain another life.
Absolutely. It's a good spot to be able to cast the whip without too much fear of anything bad happening to you when you turn out. So
Oliver takes 2 damage on this attack because he blocks with a 1/1 lifelinker, and some of the damage is mitigated by that. Looks like he also drew a Murderous Cut, which is not great in this matchup, but it's a removal spell that you can definitely play, and it's good to be able to play it for 1 mana, I believe. Oh, you played. He's gonna take 1 damage from this.
Alright, and there is the Jeskai Ascendancy. This is the card that we were talking about. This is the one that some fun shenanigans can happen once this card gets on the table.
So at this point, I really think Oliver's a little behind at this point. Even though he has the Whip of Variables on the floor, he needs to develop his board really before he can start activating the Whip and getting the value out of it.
Yeah. And incremental damage has added up. He's at 12. That's not the...
But this is the point where the Jeskai Ascendancy deck can really start doing some stuff.
Some crazy things. He definitely Oliver is in the point. I don't necessarily think he has a time. He has a chance, but he needs to draw more than just land. He does have a Murderous Cut in hand, but it never seems a very good plan to Murderous Cut.
Well, at this point, if Jeremy can start really chaining spells, I like throwing a Murderous Cut at like a 3/3 or a 4/4 Goblin token.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right now, they're 2/2s from a single Ascendancy trigger, and it looks like Jeremy's just going to pass a turn. Another interesting thing is he discarded a Treasure Cruise off of his first Ascendancy trigger.
That's a good card.
There's the Doomwake
That's a good card.
But again, at the same time, if Jeremy has 1 instant speed spell, the Doomwake entering the battlefield is not going to kill the tokens.
Everything.
So that's where this Jeskai Ascendancy is really going to make this deck a different deck to play against.
Violblade's pretty good.
So here's a mill and a whip activation. I'm thinking, yep, he's going for the Doomwake Giant. He's going to go to try to kill these tokens.
Yes, I think
Here it is. Secure the wastes for 0. It's going to trigger Jeskai Ascendancy. It's going to save his Goblin tokens.
He's going to save it, yes. I mean, there is a value of playing enchantments afterwards when you have the Doomwake.
Yeah.
So it's not that Doomwake was necessarily bad.
The Doomwake, well, it's going to get exiled at end of turn.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean? It forces Jeremy's hand right there. Like,
right.
You just wasted a secure the waste that's going to get you no value other than saving your current tokens.
Right.
And, Oliver attacking right there, that's a lot of damage that came across. That was 6 damage.
That's and I mean, it's one of those situations where you want to attack because you have the lifelink, so you're negating that 6 damage that you would take anyways.
Jeremy is putting a die on the floor, probably signifying the fact that he's going to try and go for a pretty big Jeskai Ascendancy turn here. Resolving a Treasure Cruise, drawing and discarding, and then drawing 3 extra cards. So Jeremy has a lot of stuff to do right now if he can. But he's a little short on the mana side, which is one thing that I was always curious about this tokens list. Like, when do you discard your lands? When do you discard spells that you don't need? What lands do you play when you need them? It's definitely a very, very tough list to play, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because you want to be more low to the ground. You don't want to have a super high curve. You don't want to be you don't want to be too controlling, but you do need a lot of mana to do a lot of the busted things you want to do.
Yep. There's a Valorous stance on the Courser of Krufix. He's going to draw a card, discard a card. Courser's going to go to the graveyard, and he's going to come across for 2 triggers on Jeskai Ascendancy, so they're 3/3s each. Oliver's going to block 1 and take 2 damage, it looks like. So right here, I don't know how many secure the waste Jeremy plays. I believe I only saw 2, but right here is where a Doomwick Giant would come in really
nicely. Yeah.
Or he does have a Hornet Queen in the
That would also
graveyard.
be very good.
So resolving
yes.
the Hornet Queen and getting the Death Touch tokens, which they don't care how big your
And
goblins
it doesn't
are.
look like he thinks too much. He knows that Hornet Queen is definitely what he wants to be doing.
Yep.
And I guess in this situation, I can definitely see Anger of the Gods
Being
being
pretty
good.
good.
Yeah. So if this was a situation that Jeremy could foresee, that could be.
But so here's what I find the problem with the Anger of the Gods is it's going to knock him off of his tokens as well,
Right.
unless he can get enough triggers to make them 4/4s, which he has a Stoke the Flames in hand. It's one of those cards that really pumps up the damage on these cards because you can almost cast it for free.
Yes, absolutely. This guy's Ascendancy is just a card that does a little bit of everything, right? It's not really carded. It's not card advantage, but it loots for you. It pumps your things. It untaps. It does a little bit of everything. So it can be a little bit of an awkward card sometimes to like take off a turn to cast, but it's very powerful.
This is true, and that's a second Jeskai Ascendancy. With 2 Ascendancies on the floor, things ramp up exponentially.
That's when things like you start going into a wacky world.
But the plus side right now is not having deployed the Anger of the Gods that I think Jeremy has in hand.
The players are actually, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but in the chat they asked if both players are 3-0. They are 2-1, so this isn't an elimination round for them.
So the issue that is currently on floor is no matter how many Ascendancies are in play, the Hornet tokens have Death Touch.
Right, of
so
course,
they
yeah.
don't care how big the goblins get.
No, they don't. But I mean, it makes it a lot easier to get your tokens out of that Anger of the God range when you have 2 Ascendancies.
Yeah. So in theory, he could stoke the flames, be able to untap his guys. They become 3/3s, and then he casts the Anger right there,
Yeah.
and they're big enough to survive it.
I just want to take a second to say, look at the island. It's a very cool looking
That
island.
looks
It's like
very green for an island.
I know.
My one of my really good friends, Ray, he plays Temur Delver in Legacy, and each of his islands just coincidentally taps for green and red, but they're not mountains or forests; they're islands.
Oh my god.
But it's very apparent with that deck where
Yeah.
every fetch land that they play
Yeah.
fetches for blue.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so here we go.
Oh,
Ooh.
a Siege Rhino. This is like so many attacks you can have in your head. Anytime you follow it up with a Siege Rhino, everything changes.
Always. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier with Jeremy, is that even though like he has the anger, he has these things, he's kind of in a losing game. The value that this deck can have, like now, like whipping back rhinos and things like that, whipping back Hornet Queen, with a milling with Satyr Wayfinders, Sidisi's, things like that. You really don't want to try to play a long game with them. You really want to try to get them early enough. It looks like Jeremy's just doing the math, thinking what would be his best play.
It looks like he has 2 Stoke the Flames in his hand. Problem is the Stoke the Flames really, really get better when you have 4 tokens on the floor and you don't have to tap any of your lands for them.
Right.
Then they
It's
become
rent-free.
deal 4 damage, +1/+1 to my team, draw and discard a card.
Luckily here, the Stoke the Flames, like, the only thing I can say, luckily, is that if he taps the 2 tokens, he can untap them with Jeskai Ascendancy, so they effectively can use it twice, like,
Yeah.
for Stoke. So that's good, that's something. But still eating up his mana.
So Jeremy's just going through his head right now, trying to figure out how to get this done.
Yes.
He's in a very tight spot, being at 3 life right now. So here's where the extra tokens really come in handy, I think. So
Yes, this is good. This is good that he has the raise the alarm.
so he's got 2 triggers from Ascendancies, and he now has 4 creatures to be able to tap to stoke the flames.
Discarding those lands. I mean, he must. Obviously, he wants to discard the lands because he feels everything is integral to his hand, but he is suffering a little bit. It will make it a lot easier with the 2 extra tokens.
Is there an Urborg in play? Maybe some of the cards in the glare on the bottom are Urborgs because he just tapped for 1 black. It looks like for the murderer's cut.
I cannot tell what those 2 lands are.
Yeah.
I'm not even close to being able to tell.
Ooh, and a disdainful stroke in response. But what the problem with this is it's going to knock off Jeremy's mana a little bit. But if he can find another Stoke the Flames, that is pretty good. So Raise the Alarm's going to resolve. He still has 4 tokens in play, so he can start casting Stoke the Flames for free at this point.
Yes. This is where you want a Soulfire Grandmaster.
This is very true.
To be very good in this spot.
So 4 triggers from the Ascendancies make the Goblins 5/5s. But I think the Soldiers are still 1/1s, so they're not going to do
Yes.
too much right now.
No. And it looks like he is going to pass the turn.
Ooh. I don't know how... So that was all main phase? It's very interesting. I don't know how much I like doing that during the main phase. I guess having extra blockers are good. So you can block and stoke the flames, the Siege Rhino. But the trample damage is still going to come through, and it's just not going to be enough for Jeremy as we finish out this match.
And
So-
Oliver is still very much in top 8 contention, so that's really good. Jeremy is 2-1, same as Oliver, who was 2-1. And he is now 2-2, of course. And Oliver moves on to 3-1. Just think of how insane it would be if Oliver won the Standard Open, turned around and qualified for the Pro Tour.
He's one of those guys that I've always had high hopes for, and I've watched this kid play Magic here at Kirwan's Game Store multiple times, and every single time it baffles me. This kid is truly a mage. I've seen him, and it's great to watch. Coincidentally enough, I believe he's a Yu-Gi-Oh! World Champion.
Yes, he is.
So, not even just skilled in 1 game, but 2.
Yes.
Alright, so I'm gonna cut that. Talk and then we'll cut out. Hey guys, that was a really interesting match. Both of those decks are pretty strong, but they're decks that have fallen to the wayside a little bit. Now that new stuff is picked up and other people are playing.
Definitely. I really like Reanimator. I think it is definitely positioned relatively well. It's very grindy. As you can see, I don't think it has the... I think Jeskai Tokens doesn't have a very good matchup against it.
Yeah.
I would not like to sit across it if I was playing Jeskai Tokens. It's just a little too slow to really get anything under it, and then it will outgrind you.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's just too much life gain, too much value, especially with the Abzan deck versus like the Sidisi deck. The Sidisi deck will give you more blockers, which is good against the tokens list, but the Abzan deck with the Siege Rhino is just gaining you life, even without a Whip of Erebos on floor is just too good, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alright guys, we're going to cut out, we're going to get prepared for round 5, and then we'll be back.